Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our next panel. Joanna, Jennifer, Rick, Dane, Brett, and Brooks.
We need one more chair. It was supposed to be added. Should we just grab one from down there? Do you guys have it? Okay, cool. Here, let me move over a little. Hello, everybody. Well, we're getting set up. Is everyone having a good day? All right. Woo! Okay, so we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves, but just while we're getting settled here, we wanted to know from you guys, are there any one or two things that you want to walk away from this panel with having learned or dug into deeper? Just if anyone can shout out a couple of things that they're interested in. Yes? What everybody else is thinking. Okay. About what? Just kidding. Okay. Got it. So to talk about so you're interested in the topic of the panel. Awesome. Thank you. That's great. And any other throughput? All right.
Great question.
Throughput. Anything else? Storytelling as technology tool makers. Is that what you said? Awesome. Okay. You got that?
Great.
Okay. Last ones? Profitability, monetization. Okay. Awesome. All right. So hi, everybody. I'm Joanna Popper. I am at HP. I joined about 3 months ago, and I'm leading up our location-based entertainment strategy and working with many of these fine people up here for virtual reality. Go ahead, Brent.
Hi, folks. My name's Brent Bushnell. I run a high-tech circus called 2-Bit Circus. We're opening what we call a micro amusement park. We're putting in the middle of the downtown LA Arts District. It's opening very soon. I can't wait to show you.
My name is Brooks Brown. Up until a few days ago, I headed up VR for Starbreeze and did a whole bunch of stuff in that. And most recently, we won the wonderful award at Tribeca for Storyscapes with our piece called Hero.
Woo. Congratulations
Hero
on that.
is totally awesome, by the way.
Heroic.
And the best headshot out of all of us.
Yeah.
We love that one. I'm Jenny Cook. I come from Dreamscape Immersive. We do immersive storytelling in the location-based space. We just had a pop-up in February and March at the Westfield Century City Mall, and we plan on opening up permanent locations this year.
I'm Rick Schulze. I'm a co-founder at Nomadic. We're doing location-based entertainment, tactile location-based entertainment. And we aren't in the public yet, but we're hoping to open this fall.
Awesome.
I'm Dane Smith. I'm the Global Head of Business Development at the third floor. Our core business is visualization. We use a lot of these tools for location-based entertainment, visualization, and retail VR and AR experiences. I'm really grateful that you put me on the panel. I'm a big fan of everyone up here.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So let's talk a little bit about the design phase around content. We'll talk about storytelling first and then move on to distribution. So what are some of the elements that you consider in the early design phase when you're building specifically for location-based entertainment? How is that different than building for other venues, and how do you see that changing in the future?
Man, the first thing we go to is throughput. This guy nailed it. In location-based, right, we're in the rental business, and I want to rent this square footage to you for as much as possible and make sure you have a great time. And so throughput's a big one. And, I would say for all the creators out there, one of the things that we're really looking for is ways to get more people through the experience than need the headset. So what do I mean by that? Like asymmetric play. You're Godzilla in VR destroying the city, right? 5 of us all have Xbox controllers looking at a big display, and we're the tanks trying to stop you. 5 people entertained, 1 person in VR. And because the problem is VR is, it's low throughput. all of those, all the gear is expensive, right? The controllers, the headsets, everything, and just assume that everything you put in the hands of the public is going to break. Now, if that's a 3D headset, or 3D glasses at your movie theater, no problem, right? It costs you a couple of cents. If it's a $2,000 backpack and $100 controllers and a big freaking expensive headset, that gets to be problematic, And so we're really looking for ways to get more people involved in the entertainment experience that are not just in VR.
And there's liability, right?
And say that again?
Liability.
And liability, yeah. Well, that's a whole different ball of wax. But yeah, absolutely. Totally.
So aside from throughput, I'll try to take a different tactic. For us, whenever we designed, when I was at Starbreeze, and my first thought tends to be towards user experience. One of the difficulties for location-based is we don't have this core, ultra-hardcore VR audience like you do for home or you do for console games who have an understanding of the core language of how an experience is going to go every time. In my Xbox, I press start. Generally speaking, circle is back on my PlayStation, X is go forward. These are core language things that are tropes. And inside of my Vive controller, there are still some level of that, of how I get around, how I navigate, and all of that. The average consumer has no concept of that. They're much more akin to people like my dad, who, best case scenario, their only experience with motion controllers is Wii bowling. So how do you onboard someone properly? How do you show them that experience before they even come up to decide that they're going to get in the headset? I was fortunate I had a chance to design a throughput and build out the world's largest VR arcade up until China. Of course, China did theirs. But we had ours in Dubai, where we did a number of experiences, and getting that thought like Disney has, where when people walk up, they need to understand what they're about to do as they're going through the line. How do they learn more aspects of what they're going to be doing when they're in it? How do you onboard them quickly? Because if the first minute of a person's experience is tutorials, they don't give a shit about what they're doing anymore. They want out. And then how do you offboard them properly? So it's user experience is far more important in location-based than it is in home by a wide margin.
Okay, I'll take the content side of that and how we design the content style. So when we look at what we're going to make and put in a location base, we start asking ourselves a few questions. Can you only do it in VR? Do you want to do it in VR? Who are you within that story? We really want to immerse you in that story, and we want to give you agency and embodiment in that story. So you're not just watching your story, you're part of it. We want you to walk through there, have a bonding experience with the 5 other people you're in there with, so that you walk away having a memory and a moment that you can actually retell that you went through, not just saw.
So we're a little different in that we're not creating our own content. We're working with outside partners, both game studios and movie studios. And so one of the first things we have to do is evaluate how that's going to translate into VR space with the same kind of considerations in terms of, is it entertaining? Can you get an X number of people through? And then it gets down into a lot of, after you get through the fun part, it gets down to the mechanics of moving people through, moving them safely, hoping that they won't break your equipment, preventing that, and giving them information along the way. What we do is a little different as well in that everything is tactile. We don't have game controllers, so we don't have to go through a lot of the indoctrination you'd have to do normally. It's all intuitive.
So our pathway in is B2B. My background is a visual effects producer, and about 4 or 5 years ago, which is light years in terms of the latest wave of VR, I was asked to produce a theme park dome experience. And I hired a director, and we got a DK1, and we were able to port all of the Maya assets into the dome. And I remember very clearly, as I'm telling this story, putting that DK1 on for the first time and seeing it was an underwater show, seeing all of these creatures in coral with no proscenium. I was completely immersed in the experience. And for me, the light went on. I thought, what an amazing tool to develop and drive these new global experiences, these location-based entertainment and dome experiences. We're no longer bound by this 16:9 square. We're suddenly in the experience. And we very quickly got headsets to our collaborators and animators, and we're soon all in this virtual dome using the CAD drawings and the actual Maya files. We're able to design a really compelling experience. So in my current professional life at the third floor, we do actually design a lot of theme parks using this technology, and many of those parks will be engaged by the audiences using AR. But we also do VR experiences, retail VR experiences. One of the early experiences we did was The Martian and Raising a Ruckus, which are available at the IMAX VR centers. But the timeline has moved very quickly, and I think that we're going to see a lot more interest in interactive experiences. What VR really does is empower the user to direct, and it puts the director in a different position because you're using audio cues and visual cues to drive the experience. But some of the best VR experiences we come out of as a community and then talk to one another afterwards, and we've had a completely different customized experience depending on what was important to us and what we paid attention to.
I'd maybe throw in one other thing to the revenue question, sort of factors in at this stage also, in that if you can do a multi-role experience, you might be open to coming back to try a second role. And so now this same experience that you've built, I go through it one time as the pilot, and then I go through the next time as the gunner. And you know, this same piece of content I can experience a couple of times, and you know, it's going to monetize all the better.
In some of our market research, to pick up on your point on monetization, what was interesting to us is in these retail VR experiences, some of the most popular titles were created for that purpose. So there's this huge IP from Lucasfilm or from a studio, and people are lining up for Robo Recall or Raw Data, which was designed specifically for this technology, and not maybe taking an existing IP that's more familiar and putting it on top of a VR experience. And I know that Dreamscape did that with Alien Zoo. It was a completely original IP.
And I think the other thing that we found was the bonding that people had. So you came to it and you weren't isolated. Something that we found was really unique in how we're approaching VR is trying to let you do something that you bond with your family or your friends. So if you want to go out as a mother with your kids and you don't want to feel overwhelmed by having to game, or you don't want to go sit in a dark movie theater and not actually be able to talk to each other, this is something we found everyone loves to come do together, so that they walk out of there and they're talking about it afterwards. They want to go see another one right away. So we're looking at that aspect of it. Then we're really trying to utilize that spatial storytelling, but really have people do things together.
That's definitely one of the really exciting parts about location-based entertainment, that you're bringing people together to interact in a new way.
Which, you know, one other piece about that is the people watching, right?
Yeah.
There's the people actually doing it. Ideally, there's some asymmetric play where there's maybe some people who can be playing outside alongside. But just to make it entertaining for the people outside, they have no impact on the experience, but they enjoy watching it. There's some great green screen solutions. You know, frankly, a lot of the ones, you know, like the height, you know, acrophobia kinds of stuff. One person freaking out like they're about to fall off a building,
yeah.
Super entertaining to 20 people watching, right? You know, that's a lot, you know, that's one person in VR and 25 people entertained.
Yeah, one philosophy is, how do you make VR as entertaining for people watching people do VR as for the people in VR? Which is
and if we're talking about location-based, you know, you've got a lot of people out there. You want to make sure that you can lever that space all the more.
Also, on the point of ROI, I read a recent stat by a film producer who had done a study on how many people actually attend films. And in the 40s and 50s, families would go to 20 to 40 films per year, and now we go to 2. So the audience has actually increased, and technology's increased, and fans of various IP have increased. Where are those eyeballs going? Where are those people going? I really believe it's location-based entertainment. It's these group experiences. If you're invested in an IP, you've read the novels and graphic novels, and you see the films, and there still isn't enough. You want to build a sense of community around that IP and be with people that are into it and experience it in a new way. And I think that's driving a lot of the expansion of location-based entertainment.
Do you have anyone wearing their Star Wars gear here today? Speaking of, not so many?
Probably a great example.
But I think another thing that is we're all responsible for doing is making really good VR, because we've got to build an appetite for it. People have to want to do VR. And so everybody who's out there making VR, when we go to these festivals and we all talk, that's one of the biggest responsibilities we hold right now, because we're all on the cutting edge of it. And if we make bad stuff, we're going to turn people off.
One of my questions, so what advice do you have for storytellers out there in the audience? So don't make bad stuff. Got that one. Thank you, Jenny.
If you have a story, the easiest thing to do is to step back and see if it would be better in another medium. Yeah. Like that's
I
it.
second that. That was going to be my
If the
point
answer
also.
is yes, I can do this inside of a movie or a book or a comic or
go
a
do it in
classic
those.
video game, yes,
Or a
then,
5-hour
then that's
caricature.
great.
Yeah.
If you do a VR project that would be better served in something else, then what you've done is you've turned VR into at best a gimmick and at worst a magic trick. And so when someone does actually come to experience that in a location-based environment, someone like my dad, who it's the first time they've had it and they've been convinced by their kids to see it, they'll see it, they'll go, oh, it's cool. Because VR is pretty cool. And that's it. And then getting them to spend another $15 doing anything else is going to be zero, because they can go do that next door at the movie theater and see a movie that you just made that would have been better there. Or they could spend $10 on Steam and get a better game. So the ability for us to actually, to your point again, the need for us to drive what VR is at its core level is probably the most sacrosanct thing that we all have.
The number one question, can it only be done in VR?
That's the only thing that matters.
And it really is about the experience. And I think, Dreamscape and Void have both done an incredible job of not saying, hey, come do VR, come do this awesome experience, right? It's not about the
It's
tech.
not the technology.
It's about the
You're
freaking
right.
experience.
That's so true. We don't even want to highlight the technology. We didn't even want to use the word VR. We
Yeah, you
want you
don't-
to be immersive storytelling.
Yeah,
You don't
it's-
market films with the projector or the screen. You market it by the IP.
Go sit in a
This
dark room.
amazing set of
Come sit in a dark
chairs.
room.
Christie projector, yeah, no one cares.
The chair is less comfortable than at home.
The
but
other
come.
responsibility we have is to keep this alive by asking those questions, because when I look at my nieces and nephews and 9 to 14-year-olds that are growing up in a world where this tech is ubiquitous, one of them is going to come up with that amazing experience or story that truly only can be told in VR because it's all they've known. And I think that wave is coming pretty quickly as well.
Joanna knows best, coming with HP, is that you shouldn't let tech drive your story. Your story needs to drive technology. It'll catch up. They know how to get there. The technology we're using today is not going to be in a year. It's going to be totally different and better.
So turning to those of you who've opened to the public, and what are some of the lessons learned, whether it's a full-on public opening, a pop-up, focus groups that you've done. What are some of the lessons that you've learned, and how you've taken those lessons into your future projects?
Everything will break.
Everything.
Everything will break.
Except for HP products, right? But, yeah.
Drunks and kids are kind of the same. The drunks are just bigger and more violent.
Turns out the majority of people are right-handed, and they break the right-handed headset. The right side headset, yeah.
Interesting.
They're rough.
You can't underestimate technical literacy. No matter how much you think you may be planning for that person who has no clue about what VR is, you cannot assume that. And granted, when we were opening in Dubai, it's a little bit of a different world. Video games were haram until about 7 years ago. And Mika, who's actually here watching, she was stuck there with us trying to figure out how to shepherd people who had no concept of what VR was. And my favorite example is we put a woman in, and it's a very basic game called The Raft. Lovely game. There's a gun on the ground. You've got your Vive controllers. And I was like, cool. The gun's on the ground in front of you. Look down. And she goes, I can't see it. And she's standing there still. And I'm like, just look down. And she's like, I am. She was literally looking down. She didn't have the concept that she could move her head. And the best part is this was part of the group called Hardcore Gamers from the Focus Testers. So you can't underestimate. You need to be ready for kind of anyone who may want to come in, because VR is that thing. It's sexy to everybody. Technophiles, technophobes. It's just cool. And so you can't underestimate how completely clueless a person's going to be. To your point about giant kids.
But I think the other thing we learned was there isn't an age group for this. It is 4-quadrant. We said that before we opened. We laughed at ourselves for saying that, because I come from the world of making movies. We always pretended we were making them for 4-quadrant, and we weren't. This really, we had people, they were coming in. We had 10 years old was our age limit. I had one woman tell me she brought her 7-year-old, and we had a 94-year-old. And we truly ranged all the way through there for the entire time we were open.
One thing we found too, we have had a couple pop-ups, so we're not fully immersed in the public yet, but we did have a couple pop-ups, and our demo is contingent on VO and people following VO, and we found there are a lot of people that our demo's a little intense, and people just didn't listen to the VO. We had a very difficult time with certain types of learners, just getting them to follow the cues. So you have to come up with different ways of reinforcing those things visually and with audio. And
That is so true. You know, instructions, right? People do not read instructions, never read instructions. And it's interesting, you are a completely different person in public than when you're at home. When you're at home, you're comfortable. It's a safe environment. You've got your couch. You've got all the time in the world. You can sort of do your thing. In public, you might be on a first date. You've got a colleague. You've got a drink in your hand, right? You have a completely different tolerance for instructions. And so you might be a technophile normally, but you're going to get out in public and you're just not going to read those instructions. You're not going to be as thoughtful with things as you would be normally. And so building for that, no menus, right? No, as few other things as you can possibly put in, all of those things are barriers.
And I would also add with that, the hosts or docents, whatever word you want to use for them, the lowest level employees who are going to be the ones dealing with the people every day, the need for, one, training them properly is really, really important. Make sure they clean the damn headsets. Please make sure they clean the damn headsets. But the second thing is their passion and their love for VR bleeds through into your customer beyond anything else. So, and it's granted, this is customer service 101. If you go to GameStop, you want someone who plays video games, not someone who's just there for a paycheck. Best Buy is buying a TV. It doesn't matter where you are. It's the same rule. But in VR, if you don't have someone who's really passionate about VR selling that, the person is going to be lost. They're going to be confused. And there's just something that's completely lost in that translation.
They're a brand ambassador at this point,
yes.
And they're a VR ambassador. So early in the ecosystem. So in terms of, thinking about marketing and how to portray, we talked a little bit about, not using the word VR, and thinking about 4-quadrant, how do you guys think that we are going to reach some mass adoption with these venues? We're seeing an explosion of growth. Even just locally here in LA, there are probably, 4 places open 6 months ago. There's maybe 14 or 15 open now. So we're seeing mass growth. How are we reaching our consumers? How are we talking to the consumers? How are we creating a shared language about what the experience is going to be? How do you guys think about that?
I think it's multi-platform. You have to reach all the different people because you have people who usually go to websites. You have your basic social media for word of mouth, and that's really important. You can't underestimate that. You have AR that can support your product before and after you come through the product. You can have them leave with it, and then they can share it. And so, again, reaching back to social media, but there's a lot of platforms out there. Basic trailers, they're okay. But, this is VR. It doesn't look always as good in basic trailers. So it's approaching it with a new way of looking at it and understanding you also are talking to a majority of the audience that doesn't understand what you're talking about. So finding your points and trying to explain it and trying to make sure that you figure out what's your brand and what are you naming it so that once they say the word Dreamscape, they know what that means. They know what they're going to get.
I think social media will really drive all of this. We're working with a couple of developers to come up with methods to share that experience with people that may not be with you and capture and share that experience. I mean, it's something we see in every theme park, on every roller coaster. They have an opportunity to do a snapshot, but if you add the power of social media to that, it takes away some of the isolation, which the isolation that happens in VR can actually be beautiful and can really add to the experience. But if you are able to transcend that by sharing it with people that may not be with you, or remembering and capturing those moments and taking that away, I think that'll really start to drive this to new audiences, people that may be technophobes or reluctant or unable to see their way through going through the doors of IMAX VR, for example.
I really believe it's all about the content and the experience, right? You bought Xbox for Halo, right? The console was a tax, right? You bought Super Mario, you bought Nintendo for Super Mario Brothers. The console was a tax. Like all of this stuff is, you're going for the content. And so we need more awesome content. If you haven't seen Carnegie Arena, it's freaking incredible.
You haven't seen it, it's probably you couldn't get a ticket because
you couldn't get a ticket. It's sold out forever, right? I mean, it's just gorgeous.
With them.
What's that?
Get on the website. They keep coming up with
Every morning you can find some.
Yeah, it is really special. And it does such a good job of allowing you to kind of empathize with this experience. And we just need 100 more pieces like that.
Yeah, the content needs to be more powerful. It's one of the great problems is we're not necessarily competing against, everyone talks about, well, we're location-based. I mean, we're competing against movies, competing against people going out for this. You're also competing against me staying home and binge watching Bosch. Like, that reality is Bosch is, generally speaking, a better experience, more emotional, more interesting, keeps my brain active, and I get to sit around my underwear and just eat Cheetos. Like, that's great. So why am I going to go out?
Don't come do that at Carnegie.
Yeah. they frown on it pretty big. But when I go out and I go to these VR experiences, and I'm as guilty of making these as anyone else, they're at best fun, which is great, and that's good for a family day out. And it's why things like 2-Bit Circus or Dreamscape do extremely well, is because there's very few who are doing these very more powerful experiences. The vast majority of VR arcades are the home put into a box, and kind of that's it. The ability for us to actually do something that's different, that gives people a reason to be out of their house. Everything else doesn't matter. That moment is still yet to come, I believe, but I think we're generally on the way, but that's the thing. That's the moment when we need to be fighting.
Well, and the reason right now that we have the home put into the box is because they're not in people's homes at the same level that we hope to see in the future.
Because we had a whole bunch of boxes left over when no one bought them. Like that's the reason we have VR in the format we do. If we had a whole bunch of, I say it every time, if we had a bunch of 3D TVs left over, we would not say, cool, let's open up a place with a bunch of rooms and put 3D TVs in them. That's how we're gonna get people interested in 3D format. That's what we've done. We've got these things that were built for home from the beginning for low cost, low, quick, easy installation, easy push away. That's not what location-based is capable of. We're able to build grander things, bigger things, better storytelling, thorough build-outs, all of these things, and we need to do more to kind of wash away this sort of stink of the home market that did not pan out for anyone, and kind of figure out what location-based can do on its own.
And there's enough stuff for for the hardcore gamer, right? Lots of great shooters, all that kind of stuff. Let's do some stories that are not that, right? Some stuff that is going to have a broader audience, for young adults.
60% of your audience will never want to shoot something in the face. Yeah. That's it. I mean, so just why even force them to do that?
That's great. That's my next. What is that? Yeah, so that's my next question. Like, if you had free reign and unlimited budget, what would you be creating?
The holodeck, and you'd make situations that people have responsive worlds to. It's not difficult in the gaming space. It's where VR's in this fascinating place where we are at a crossroads of where the best minds in film, the best minds of gaming are doing their thing in separate areas. The best minds of playwrights, Sleep No More, fantastic immersive theater, really, really smart escape rooms. All of these things exist, and VR is a weird coalescence of all of these different things put together. The ability for me to go step into old mobster land. Pick your Star Trek episode. Pick a non-Star Trek episode. I've got a lot of them. But you go into a holodeck, and then the world responds as you do. You are the pool ball, the cue ball that is knocking these things in different directions, and the world becomes responsive. It's easy to build these in games. Like, this is the kind of stuff you can download on Steam for $10. These are not $50 million productions. We can build these in VR. We can allow a person to experience this. When we did Hero, from the beginning, the goal was to enable people to feel like and be in a situation that they couldn't be in otherwise, that they felt the world was responsive to. We happened to choose something super, super, super depressing, a corner in Syria in a marketplace, and then we kill a whole lot of people. But that moment, at watching people, and we stood there, and I've watched 400 or 500 people go through it, and how they react and how they deal with that. Each person does it differently. Some people respond very strongly. We had a guy who literally started grabbing the set and tearing it apart. There's a girl that you need to save, and he really wanted to get to her. And you're not supposed to do that, but it was fine. He broke the set. Other people collapsed and fell and hid behind other objects. The whole set's built, oil barrels and tires, and people just hid. Then they come out. Now, when they come out, the guy who hid and the guy who did charge all the way through, the guy who survived everything, the guy who saved the girl, which one of them were happy about what they did? Every single one of them. Every single one of them said, that was amazing. I did blah, 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 because it happened to them. They're not watching Brooks go through it. They're not watching something James Cameron directed. They're not watching Luke Skywalker. It's, sorry, this is my long rant about VR. I get so pissy about this.
Go, Brooks.
Everyone sees when I was on Lucasfilm, the #1 thing we learned is no one wants to be Luke Skywalker. He's a whiny, kind of bitchy guy. What everyone wants to be is they want to be Luke Skywalker. They want Brooks the story of Brooks
Right.
to be the farmhand.
Right. Right.
That's what they want, and that's what VR can give. That's what we should be aiming for.
It's the marriage of film and gaming, and it's truly, it's not putting a story on gaming, it's putting gaming mechanics into film
Yes.
and storytelling, and that's the way you're going to actually get beautiful product that way. You look at it that way, you use all those mechanics, you use all those tricks that we have within the gaming world, but you focus on the narrative, and you come up with something, and you figure out really early on at the very beginning, who is your audience going to be in that story? You can't forget that ever, because if you forget that, you've lost them.
Yes.
There's also a responsibility as producers.
I get so
You know,
angry.
we're asking for an investment from the audience. Anytime it's interactive, I'm asking you to learn about characters and learn mechanics. And why am I going to put all of that effort and give you $10 or $20 or $50 to have this experience if that promise isn't fulfilling? And what we're developing now with one of the major studios is a chapter, a serialized version of a story. And we're finding ways to tease it. And it's taking much longer than we thought, because it's like writing a great screenplay. You get into the middle of the second act and you realize you've left something out and have to go back to the beginning. So we really are pioneering a new way of telling stories. But if we do our job well, this first 10-minute experience will plant enough seeds that don't worry, there's more to come, that we'll be able to serialize it, and we'll be able to build this bridge and bring the audience along with us.
And I'd go back, one of the best storytelling experiences that this next generation has, and it's difficult for most of the people in this room to understand, is Minecraft. Minecraft does not have a story in the way that anyone on this, anyway, we've been talking about it, but every single person who's played 20 minutes of Minecraft or an hour of it, every 6-year-old, every 10-year-old has a story that they've told. That's how we need to start thinking about story. We're building worlds for story to be enabled in. That's the difference.
It's a storyteller's biggest dream to be able to, as a filmmaker, you make a film and you want the audience to walk away and remember their film, and you want them to tell people about it. But if you can use every aspect of new spatial storytelling and put your audience in that film, it's the biggest dream as a storyteller.
You know, this is a really interesting thread, because how many people have done immersive theater in the audience? Wow, actually a pretty good penetration. Immersive theater is kind of a better primer for making VR content than watching a movie. And you know, a little bit to Brooks' point, you know, in Minecraft, you are a co-creator of the experience, right? You are self-directed, and you are having to kind of take an active role in your entertainment. Just like immersive theater, you show up, and if you just expect to be entertained, you're not gonna have a good time. You have to be curious and wander around and really explore and be part of it. You are a co-creator of that experience. And I think a lot of the VR worlds, you build the world, and then you allow people to explore this world, and they're gonna, you know, be taking an active role in it. Less like a movie where you just sit there and you're entertained and you're just this passive observer. You are actively part of this
And
journey.
you're rewarded for those choices, or you're punished. There's some kind of give and take with the creator.
There's a risk.
third, exactly, which is much different than storytelling in films. And that's part of where this trough of disillusionment happened. A lot of the people that were empowered earlier on in VR were people that come from my world, which is film, and it's really the wrong approach. The storytelling aspect comes from gaming. And the media and the tools may come out of filmmaking, but the storytelling is being, you know, captured by the people that create games.
It's more akin to level design. Anyone who's interested in it, there's a wonderful, and you can Google him, his website, I love it. Matthias Warch has a series of presentations he gives every year at GDC, a level design summit. It's huge at GDC, and he posts them all, and they're extraordinary tools to be able to understand how to tell story through a world as a person explores, and every decision you make as a designer or writer that is impeding someone, rewarding them, or punishing them, even unintentionally. It's really incredible.
And then the ROI comes from tapping into that community, because once you've spent all this time investing in learning the rules and characters and gameplay, you want to interact with other people that are on that same level, and you're building a community, you're building people that are your audience, you're designing it as you go in collaboration with your audience, you're not dictating it to them.
Dane, just one last thing on what you said, Dane. I like about, you know, thinking more like the video game. And, you know, when people play video games, those beautiful cinematics, what happens? They fast forward through it, right? Get me into the game. I want to play.
Go get another sprite.
Yeah, you know, we've set the expectation that you are going to be interacting with this thing, and then to set you, you know, stand you there and give you a, you know, a passive experience. That's not fun, right?
And to circle all this back to the original question, because we just kind of, I do that. I go down a path. Sorry, this is my fault.
Anybody else have a soapbox?
But all of these things, this is how we start moving away from, I think, the biggest problem in VR right now, which is we're sort of seeing this push down into the $5 every 5 minutes kind of mentality.
Right.
And it needs to go the other direction. Right. And we need the content to be there so that way we can charge the $30, $40, $50, $60, $75, like a carnet, where people are going to go, that was worth it. I'm going to tell my friends, and I spent a fortune. So your dollar per square foot goes up, your throughput becomes a thing. All of this is how you start actually turning this into a business, is to have the content there.
George Millier didn't go to Warner Brothers to get a green light. You know, there has to be. It's a new business, and the funding and everything that comes along with it has to come from another source. There are patrons that are springing up, but you can't be thinking about ROI from minute one, or you're not going to create a compelling experience.
And when do we start the timer, right, on the minutes of the experience, right? You go to a Disney attraction, and there's the actual, being on the ride, but there's the pre-show, right? Everything that happens in line. There's the post-show when you're leaving and you're walking off, right? That whole thing is part of the entertainment experience. Carne does an incredible job. The pre-show and the post-show makes this a 1 hour experience. You might be 8 minutes in the actual VR, but there's a whole complex, set of other things going on that allows you better value, right? I feel like I really got an expanded entertainment experience. Part of it was VR, but there was a bunch of other stuff.
We look at it from the guest journey. It's the moment you get them to look at that website to buy the ticket, you start immersing them and you start getting them into your story, and you carry it through the experience. You carry it after the experience. Yeah.
So let's talk about, we're sitting here in LA, but a lot of you guys are working on projects that are touching all corners of the globe. So let's talk about, how VR and location-based experience compare, I know, in Asia and the Middle East with what we're seeing here in the US. There probably are people in this room who've seen location-based entertainment all across the world, but how would you guys talk about the comparison?
I mean, Asia's crushing it, right? I mean, they've been so much faster than we are in deploying stuff. They had an entire boom and bust cycle, and now there's another boom, right? So that's been, I think, really fascinating. There's a lot of learning that's come out of particularly China and Tokyo and Japan. Yeah,
and I would say it's fascinating to see culture by culture, kind of the way that everything is already set up and how they're predestined to almost spend every evening out. In the US, we come home, we spend the evening with our families, we have large houses, all of this. It's a very different mentality. But if you spend any time in the East, or Shanghai, Hong Kong, Beijing, 5 o'clock hits and everyone's out. And they're out for the rest of the night. PC bangs are packed. Completely different world. And so that kind of mentality of going out and not being in predisposes them to having very successful arcade businesses, even if they're, which they generally are, just a Vive set up inside of someone's sort of corner of their shop.
Yeah, the challenge there is finding enough real estate to make a larger thing than a Vive setup,
Yeah.
Although, interestingly, most of the things that are true in America are true in Asia and just bigger, right? We overbuilt on retail, they overbuilt on retail, right? They've got a set of young adults that are super excited about immersive, and they do too. There's just more of them. Of course, the thing that's interesting is there is this great term called the six-pocket child, and I hadn't heard this, but China has an entire generation of only children, and those children have 2 parents and 4 grandparents. 6 pockets of money for this one kid, right? I have 7 siblings, right? Any money that came to me was distributed across those 8 kids, right? And so they have a much higher on average spending power per child.
Yeah, and they spend time together as a family. Yes. I mean, that's culturally, there's a lot of difference there, is going out as a family and doing things together as a family.
You guys had a wish, like little genie here. What would you wish to see shift in this landscape in the next year or 2? What would be your number 1 wish?
More meaningful content. Like stuff like Carne, stuff like Hero, things that you leave not just having had a good entertainment experience, but your worldview has changed, right? You have learned something new. You are a better person as a result.
Mine would be hardware taking a backseat to content. I've said it, Hollywood Reporter quoted me, and I will always say it again: if technology leads us, we fail. And that's true with almost every industry, and there's no reason it's different for VR.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the, but more content, better content out there so that people grow an appetite to it. Because I do believe the hardware right now is not where it's going to be. And I always make the joke, it's like the 80s cell phone. It's that ginormous thing. And in about a year, it'll be the iPhone version. So I think that's on its own path. And I think we'll get there. I just want to see a lot more content. That's good.
Yeah, I'd like to put in a plug for not only serious content, but entertaining, fun content, things that we can go back and experience over and over and over. And one of the things we're hoping to do is try and create the synthesis of film and games and be able to gamify that so people do come back and continue to experience that in new ways.
I'd like to see the world of fine art and theater inform VR and what we do a lot more. And I think we have the power in our hands right now to take a group of school children from South LA to the Louvre this afternoon. I'd like to see more of that, empowering people that maybe don't have a $2,000 computer at home to really have their minds blown by this tech and then start to seed the next generation of directors and creators with this technology. I think we have a responsibility to do that.
A bunch of the kids here today. Did you guys see them? They were all making 360 content, interviewing us. They're really great. They're learning Unity. They're 12-year-olds. They're in 6th grade class. Are they in the room? No, they're not here. But,
and also, please, more asymmetric play. I would love that. And more multi-role stuff. Literally, build that, please, and then let me know, because I want a lot of it.
Awesome. So we were going to ask each other questions. What do you have? What do you have for each other? Brent, who do you want to ask a question?
Not me first. Somebody else.
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
What's your favorite recent VR experience that you stumbled on? What is something you saw recently that...
Besides your own.
A happy accident, something you didn't produce or didn't...
I loved Hero.
Well, thank you. Well, we were at Tribeca. I got a chance to see Jack, which was... one of the things we did in Hero that Jack did that I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of, especially in premium VR, is real people. Is doing away with the idea that some poor animator has to figure out the 900 different ways a thing needs to move to make it seem realistic. And instead we'll just have a $14 an hour person who's really excited about being that character actor. And the moment that you see another person, like, there is a genuinely weird moment where your brain crosses over. You're like, oh, this is good. Oh, that's good. And oh shit, that's a person. Like it was like it really messes with your head.
It was really impressive because it combined the HP backpacks that we use with them, plus an improv actor, plus mocap and facial recognition software. It was really pushing the envelope on the technology, and it was a retelling of the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. So it's a story we know, but very much reimagined. Very, very creative and awesome to work with them.
I just still love I Expect You to Die. That freaking game is awesome. It's just, you get to be in the James Bond moment right before you're about to die and you have to figure out how to get out. And it was one of those things where I got out of VR and then I was still thinking about it. I couldn't wait to get back in and solve it again. And that was really, I feel like that's a good hallmark. And Jon Favreau's Gnomes and Goblins. That was also really cool.
Bring it. Aching.
One is an observation. Actually, I've been in the arcade segment. About 20 years ago, we did a game called Beach at 2000. Place where you have to play rent, etc., to make it feasible. My suggestion, where I come from,
What was the question?
the question is, that's the question.
The question is a business feasibility.
Because if you're doing it on your own and there's nothing else backing it up, you have to bring people on your own from the street, so to speak. So that's cost that's not cost effective. That's just like any other analog business. It costs a lot of money to run a gallery or anything that requires real estate. So I want to know more or less what the business equation is now.
The questions around the business models, and where are we in figuring out the business models? I assume there's not just one business model, but maybe different business models that work for different scenarios. Is there something that you guys want to share from your experience around business models?
Well, I would say a lot of what we've discussed up here is actually directly in response to that, because right now we are in a weird cart before the horse, chicken, egg, fucked up situation inside of the entire business where the content's not necessarily good enough to actually bring people in based on the content. The tech is cool, but that's kind of our only selling point. So we have it sitting alongside other things. So people are coming to see the tech. Maybe they come as part of a larger thing at Dave & Buster's, a wonderful two-bit circus, or you're fortunate enough to do something like Dreamscape where you're instantly sold out the entire run. And they do a shorter run for that. But the IMAX VRs, the locations, the mom and pop stores are having trouble for literally that reason, that the content isn't good enough. But my argument sort of back to that would be it's going to be a leap of faith for a while. We are not there yet. I would not say start a VR arcade tomorrow. I would say start figuring out what you want to do in that space and have things surrounding it. But someday, and I believe it's soon, we're going to start getting to the point where the power of VR, that thing that VR is intended to be from a emotional perspective, will begin to bring people in. The same way that movie theaters once upon a time were just 10-minute flat plays that you watched that had no editing and whatever. People showed up whenever they wanted to. They threw shit at the screen. They screwed around. No one cared.
Sounds like fun.
It was great. And then Great Train Robbery came around and people went, oh shit, movies are a thing. Oh, this is different than other things I can experience. And that moment was a bellwether. And we haven't had that yet. Like, that's just the reality, is we haven't. And we're trying to figure out what our version of that is.
Well, there's certainly lots of people working with great IP. I mean, and I think the important thing is that we're in early stages and people are still figuring out what the business model looks like.
And here's one of the things that ends up being great in terms of IP and location based is, you spend tens and hundreds of $millions on a video game for home because it's 50 hours of play, right? In public, I need 5 minutes, right? 10 minutes of play. It's a lot cheaper to make that experience than the home solution. And so I think it's a good prototyping ground, a good place to be able to explore.
And VR and LBE can be significantly cheaper. We didn't break $1 million for Hero. We didn't even come close. And that changes the financials significantly when it comes to what we can charge, how we can recoup, and when we can build out. Significantly cheaper.
Beautiful. Yeah, my name is Lex. I host the XR podcast. This is one of the best talks ever. I want to keep continuing this. Thank you so much. Literally, we're hitting on some really crucial, this is like the IP, especially location-based. We're talking about, is there IP that can drive customers in? Like we talked about Star Wars. Like if you're the exclusive Star Wars experience, people will come to your location. And Dane touched on kind of the character development, right? If you only have a 5-minute experience, are you going to go and create a new character, or are you going to base it on existing IP, which is a shortcut, right? The Jack and the Beanstalk, this kind of existing archetypes.
I think the IP is secondary. I think that you really have to do what everyone on this panel has said. Create something that's more compelling in VR, make it repeatable, make it engaging, and then if it's someone we recognize from a recognizable IP, that's great, but what I've seen, the numbers I've seen have proven that's less important than the actual quality and gameplay and immersive experience.
We need to take cues from escape rooms. Escape rooms for me is the thing to take cues from. There are IP-based escape rooms. Zelda did one that sold out for months and months and months. That's great. There's also one just up north here that's The Basement. It's wonderful. Months and months and months sold out. Absolutely no. The Basement's not an IP. Anyone heard of it? No. These dudes made it up. It's great. And it basically based on word of mouth. So the ability for us to sort of forego the idea of, oh, we have to hit these huge broad, we need to sell tickets. We need to sell what we're doing. We need to prove it out. And the escape room model, I think, hits a lot closer to what I think we're going to be at soon.
And we opened with original IP. So that was a great test for us. Originally, we thought we were going to open up with some named IP, and we actually ended up with this one, and it was a sellout from the start. So it proved to us you don't have to have license. It's a great mix. You can do both, but it's not just a name. You don't just have to be Star Wars.
IP is a shortcut to familiar, right? We're looking for stuff that's familiar.
And marketing.
The Louvre is familiar, right? Angkor Wat. Maybe you've never been to Cambodia, but now you can go to the Angkor Wat experience, right? And so we're just looking for a familiar shortcut so that people know what you're talking about, right?
If you're trying to get something successful in the marketplace and you're doing original IP. The downside is that you don't have a marketing budget usually. So that's the plus of having piggybacking onto another IP.
But here's the problem there, is the studios with, the IP that is great, the studio wants you to pay them.
Right. And
when they've got a marketing budget, it's generally IP that's unfamiliar.
And it's also more expensive than anything you're ever going to see ROI on in VR space. That's why we don't chase that. It just,
I don't think this is an either or.
There.
I think at this point, we're accepting big IP, we're accepting original IP, we're playing and trying different things, and the studios are mostly at this point using the big IP as marketing extensions as opposed to trying to create something endemic. I think when they get to a place that they're kind of figuring out the pipeline of how to use the same assets that they're going to use for VR as for the film, as for their other digital properties, to bring that cost down, it's going to be really effective. But I do, having worked in a big studio for many, many years, there is a value of running along somebody else's big marketing, multi-million marketing budget. But I certainly don't think it's an either or, because some of the most exciting VR experiences I've seen are original IP because they've been created with the intention of being endemic to VR. So I think it's going to be both of those things are going to take us forward.
IP also allows you to have shortcuts when you're designing the user experience because, for example, if you haven't gone through the void, Darth Vader's in it. Spoiler.
No,
I know, it's shocking, right?
And wait, do you save the Empire?
Yeah. But when you see Darth Vader, no one goes, "Ooh, I wonder who that is." Like everyone knows, oh, that's the guy, I shoot him. Oh, look, these are bad guys, I shoot them. It allows you to have shortcuts. And so when we did, for example, John Wick, we did with Lionsgate when I was at Starbreeze. Fantastic example.
I love that.
What does John Wick do? You totally shoot people in the head. That's it. We didn't need a tutorial on what do you do in the level. You shoot people. You go past that. It allows you to sort of leapfrog. And that's one of the, I worked on sort of licensing side of IP. It's one of the biggest things is utilizing IP properly in order to help that user experience and get past that tutorial stage as fast as possible, because that sucks for everyone involved. But on the other side, and I'll say it again, original IP is just as strong for VR, as long as you can do it right and as long as you're able to get something that's good.
Just touched on something, Joanna. If it's built as part of the build for the overall, pipeline, then it absolutely makes sense. I literally was just at a studio this morning and was told that all of the assets that are being built on this particular project we're working on will go into AR and VR, and we need to be mindful of that, and they're not going to pay an additional fee for it. So you're absolutely right.
Naya has a question.
Oh, yes, I do. I have a question, and but before that, I would just like to say that there are some women who like to shoot people in the face, and we need more content where we can be. No, it's true, but we need more content where we can be seen as the hero rather than just being saved. And a lot of little girls playing Minecraft now are growing up to want to get into computer science because they see themselves as builders. So I would just say that in the call for content to make it more inclusive. So that's my soapbox, but and any chance I can say that with a room full of content creators, I take that opportunity.
Awesome.
My question is, and you've mentioned a few metrics that on the unit, I'd like to know more about the unit economics around location-based and how does that scale? What does a home run look like in your business? Is it franchising? Is that the big exit? Or, how do you make a lot of money as opposed to kind of just retail money at a mom and pop scale? How do you go beyond mom and pop?
Before we answer that, I loved your first point because this is actually a strong industry, and it's not the gaming industry that's more male dominated. This industry of LBEs, immersive storytelling is, yes, there are, but this is really far more open to be non-gender specific, and I love that, and I love that you made that point.
Thank you.
The data that I've seen skews slightly male, but it doesn't skew incredibly male the way that people think. Absolutely.
Content.
But I just want to make the point that already with the content that we have, it also...
No, it's super weird. We realized, I think, right before Tribeca that half the team behind Hero was women.
Yeah,
and it was
wait.
And awesome. That's super weird.
We can be heroes, too.
Yeah.
And, Minecraft, the audience, they have a large female audience, and they're running community servers, and you're seeing an uptick now in computer science entry, freshmen that are female. And a lot of it comes from that one damn game. So, content can really make a difference in what
it absolutely can. I went to
something that the Gina Davis group put out about a week or two ago, and there's something now called the Scully effect about the the Scully character on X-Files, and apparently most women in STEM identify with having watched her as when they were growing up, and so that's just one show, one character, and you have that big impact. So think about, you're talking about children growing up playing Minecraft, and think about the impact of the content that you're making and how it creates the future of the world that we're looking at.
But going back, I'd still like to know, how do you make a big ass business in location-based entertainment? That's
what we're trying to do, is scale. So we're hoping to have hundreds of locations within a few years, and that's how you bring in studios too, because then you can get into a rev share situation where they start making real money. But you have to run a lot of people through.
Yeah, it's throughput. I mean, you have to have multiple locations. You have to offer up a lot of different content so you can keep throughput up and make sure you have a really efficient team, gearing them up and putting them through. You don't have any latency on that.
Any other answers on big ass business?
I don't think you do. I think LBE is tentpole as part of a larger project. I think LBE VR as content is part of a larger play. I think there's a lot of ways to make very good money, but I don't think big ass business. It's not on its own, at least for the near future. We have a lot of work to do first. Put it on a cabinet. On a cabinet.
Franchising it?
No, he's talking about the arcade cabinets back in the day.
If you're curious about the amusement industry in VR, you got to talk to that guy right there. Bob Cooney is the expert.
Right. Any other questions? Hi. They're broadening their mics to you.
Thank you so much. Great panel. Kind of piggybacking off the last question, I'm from Portland, Oregon, and we're really trying to build a great VR community, but have never had a big location-based experience. What do we have to do as a city to make Portland attractive for these great experiences to come up?
Good. Pitch for Portland. That's a good question.
Free rent.
That's kind of not a joke.
Yeah.
Just to take that, because it's funny, but it's not a joke. Then VR primarily is a real estate play, period. That's where the beginning of the spreadsheet starts. That's where the spreadsheet really is. So whatever help you can do on that defrays all the rest of the other worries. So as much as that was funny, it was funny because it's true.
And we're looking at real estate in Portland too, so.
Nice. All right. We got to wrap up now. Let's just go down the line and tell everyone what's the best way to find you. To follow up if they want to chat with you later.
The best way to find me, I'll be around the convention for the remainder of this conference, but you can always find me at www.thirdfloor.com.
Come up and talk after.
We'll be outside because there'll be another panel coming in, so we'll be outside.
We'll be outside. And if you want to talk, we can share contacts then. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm easy to find.
Perfect. Yeah,
it's in our bio.
Yes, awesome, perfect.
BrooksIsHere.com.
BrentBushnell.com.
Great. And you can find me, Joanna Popper, on LinkedIn or Twitter, the preferred methods.
And if you find Joanna, you'll find 30,000 people on LinkedIn.
Yes.
She knows everybody.
All right. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate your time.